My head felt like it was trapped in a spin cycle. I cracked my eyes open to an unfamiliar ceiling, a massive crystal chandelier, scattering decadent light everywhere. The air was a cloying mix of flat champagne and expensive perfume. This definitely wasn't my studio apartment. I shot upright. A silk sheet slithered off my chest, revealing a stunning expanse of pale skin beside me. A woman was lying on her side, a cascade of raven hair spilling across the pillow like seaweed, leaving me with only the elegant curve of her back. Fragments of memory slammed into me like a rogue wave. My name is Leo Vance, a corporate drone who was pulling an all-nighter on a PowerPoint presentation. Then, darkness. Now this. My name is also Leo Vance, the only son of the Crestview City Vance, a trust fund kid famous for partying, racing cars, and being spectacularly useless at everything else. I've been dropped into a novel. Specifically, a trashy web novel I'd been skimming at work a few days ago. I was the cannon fodder, the throwaway villain with the same name as me. A first-class loser whose only purpose was to be a stepping stone for the story's real hero. The woman next to me stirred, a lazy, purring sound in her throat, and rolled over. A face that could launch 1,000 ships and sink them all for fun. Her features were a work of art, her eyes tipped up at the corners with a natural, predatory charm. She was awake, her gaze clear and sharp, with none of the grogginess of a hangover. It was a look of cold assessment. Scarlett Roman. The name surfaced instantly. The ruthless CEO of Roman Industries, Crestview's Rose with Thorns, known for her killer instincts in the boardroom and her bold, take-no-prisoner style. More importantly, she was the sworn enemy of my fiancée, the prim and proper Ice Queen, Ava Sterling. Scarlett stared at me, her eyes raking over me like she was appraising livestock. After a few seconds, a corner of her mouth lifted in a smirk. She reached for her purse on the nightstand, pulled out a card, and tossed it onto the sheets in front of me. A black card, its edges glinting with gold. "Forget last night," she said. Her voice was husky from sleep, but the condescending chill was unmistakable. "There's no pin. That should be enough to keep you entertained for a while." What did she take me for? Some gigolo she could pay off? Of course she did. In the entire novel, my character was basically a walking ATM with a pretty face. I ignored the card, my eyes fixed on her face. I smiled. "Ms. Roman, is this your attempt to buy my silence? Or my affection?" Scarlett clearly wasn't expecting that. She'd probably anticipated me fawning over her, or maybe the greedy swagger of a spoiled brat. What she got was a pair of calm, amused eyes. She blinked, then let out a laugh, cold and mocking. "What else? Mr. Vance, don't tell me you expect me to take responsibility for you." She sat up, the sheet falling away, shamelessly displaying her assets. She reached out, hooking a finger under my chin. "Or are you saying last night's performance was worth a higher price?" The novel's plot flashed through my mind. Today was supposed to be my engagement party with Ava Sterling. The original Leo was drugged last night, courtesy of one of Ava's admirers, and dumped in Scarlett Roman's bed. And Scarlett was more than happy to play along. What better way to humiliate her rival than to have Ava's fiancé wake up next to her on the morning of their engagement party? According to the script, reporters would burst through that door any minute. Photos of me and Scarlett would be all over the internet. At the party tonight, Ava would slap a voided engagement contract in my family's face in front of Crestview's entire elite. Leo Vance would become the city's biggest joke, and the Vance family would be disgraced. The original character spiraled after that, eventually getting himself killed after pissing off the wrong person. Thinking about it made my smile widen. I didn't push her hand away. Instead, I leaned into her touch, our noses almost touching. I could smell the clean scent of her body wash, mixed with a faint hint of wine. "Responsibility is a strong word," I whispered. "But Ms. Roman, have you considered what would happen if someone walked in right now and snapped a few pictures? What do you think tomorrow's headlines would be?" The look in Scarlett's eyes shifted instantly. The lazy contempt vanished, replaced by a sharp, calculating glint. "What are you getting at?" "Nothing." I leaned back against the headboard, picking up the black card and twirling it between my fingers. "Just a friendly reminder that we're all adults here. It's all fun and games until someone gets hurt. The tool you're using to humiliate Ava Sterling might just bite you back." She stared at me, searching my face for a crack, a bluff. She wouldn't find one. The Leo Vance she knew was a brain-dead amateur whose thoughts never strayed beyond nightclubs and street racing. He could never have said what I just said. That information gap was my greatest weapon. You. She started to say something, but just scoffed and swung her legs out of bed, striding gracefully into the bathroom. I listened to the sound of the shower running, unable to hold back my grin. Interesting. This world was a lot more interesting than I thought. Useless? A throwaway character? That was yesterday's news. The moment I, Leo Vance, arrived, the script was getting a rewrite. The sky was just starting to lighten when I pulled up to the Vance family mansion. The living room was ablaze with lights. My father, Arthur Vance, sat on the sofa, his face a mask of fury. The ashtray in front of him was overflowing with cigarette butts. He saw me, and a newspaper in his hand crackled as he clenched his fist. The anger in his eyes was practically volcanic. You finally decided to come home. He slammed the paper down on the coffee table. Look at what you've done. I glanced at the front page. The headline was in a massive, bold font. Vance Air skips engagement party, spotted at hotel with mystery woman. There were no clear photos, but the implications were nasty enough. It seemed that even though I'd outmaneuvered Scarlett and prevented the reporters from catching us in the act, the story still leaked. I'd expected as much. Dad, calm down. I walked over and poured myself a glass of water, showing none of the panic a guilty son should have. My casual attitude made my father tremble with rage. Calm down? How am I supposed to calm down? You've humiliated the Sterlings. You've humiliated me. How did I raise such a worthless son? I took a sip of water and looked at him calmly. Dad, do you really think that even if last night never happened, Ava Sterling would have married me willingly? Arthur froze. This marriage was a legacy arrangement from our grandfather's time. Who is Ava Sterling? She's the golden girl, the one who really runs Sterling Corp. You think she gives a damn about a loser like me? I said the word loser lightly, like it was a private joke. Even if I had shown up to the party last night like a good little boy, she would have found another reason to call it off sooner or later. Instead of letting her humiliate us, I just gave her an easy way out. My father stared at me, completely flummoxed by my twisted logic. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The son he knew would either be terrified and full of excuses or stubbornly defiant. When had he ever been able to analyze a situation with such clarity? He didn't know that the son standing before him was a complete reboot. Just then my phone buzzed. 2 words glowed on the screen. Ava Sterling. I answered it right in front of my father. Leo. Her voice on the other end was like ice, completely devoid of warmth. You'd better have a good explanation. An explanation for what? I asked, my tone lazy. Where were you last night? No comment. A long silence stretched on the other end. I could almost picture her expression. That perpetually frozen face, her perfect eyebrows probably knitted together in frustration. In her version of the script, I was supposed to be sobbing, begging for her forgiveness. Too bad I wasn't reading from her script. Leo, do you think this marriage is a game? Her voice grew even colder. I told you before, we're not right for each other. Since you're so incapable of behaving yourself, I see no reason for us to get married. Fine by me, I said simply. Another silence, this one laced with shock. What did you say? I said, fine by me. I repeated, my voice as casual as if we were discussing the weather. If you want to call it off, I'll sign whatever you need. Just draw up the papers and let me know. Before she could respond, I hung up. The living room was dead silent. My father was looking at me like I'd just grown a second head. Are you insane? Do you have any idea how important the Sterling alliance is to this family? Important? I laughed. Dad, do you honestly believe that relying on a family that looks down on us and is ready to bail at any second is going to save Vance Industries? Our company has been going downhill for years. You know that better than I do. Ava marrying me wouldn't be a partnership. It would be a hostile takeover. I walked over and placed my glass on the table. Respect that you have to beg for isn't real respect. Instead of groveling, it's time we stood on our own 2 feet. With that, I turned and went upstairs, leaving my father alone in the living room, surrounded by the mess, his face a canvas of shock and confusion. He had no idea that when I said stand up, I meant it literally. Back in my room, I locked the door and fired on my laptop. A useless trust fund kid couldn't turn his life around overnight on his own. But I had a cheat code. My cheat code was the novel I'd read. I remembered every major plot point, every future business trend, every rise and fall of the city's major players. The novel's hero, a guy who started from nothing, got his first big break when he used a small windfall to buy a huge, worthless plot of land in the city's South Side district. A month later, the city council released new zoning plans. A new subway line and a massive commercial center were planned for the area. The value of that land shot up 50 times overnight. I checked the calendar. I had 29 days until that announcement. I opened my banking app and checked the original Leo's balance. A few million. A fortune for a normal person, but not nearly enough to buy that land. My eyes fell on a black card I tossed on my desk. Scarlett Roman's breakup fee. I picked it up and called the customer service number on the back. After I verified my identity, a sweet-voiced operator told me the balance. It was a number big enough to buy half the damn South Side. I smiled. Ms. Roman, thank you for your generosity. I'll be happy to put this seed money to good use. I immediately called one of my parasitic friends, a guy who worked as a shady real estate broker. I told him to buy up every square inch of that South Side property, as fast and as cheap as possible. After hanging up, I looked out the window at the slowly brightening sky and stretched. Let the games begin. Over the next few days, Crestview's high society was buzzing. The news that the Vance Sterling engagement was off became the hottest piece of gossip. Everyone assumed that the useless Vance heir was finished. He'd offended Ava Sterling, who in Crestview would ever give him the time of day again. And me, the man at the center of the storm, I acted like I didn't have a care in the world. I either slept all day or took my flashy sports car out for a spin. To everyone else, it looked like I'd given up completely. Only I knew I was waiting. My broker friend was surprisingly efficient. Within 3 days, he'd acquired the entire South Side plot, thousands of square feet, for a price that was practically a steal. The day we signed the papers, he looked at me like I was the dumbest rich kid he'd ever met. Leo, man, are you sure about this? This place is nothing but weeds and an old, forgotten cemetery. You couldn't give this land away, let alone develop it. I clapped him on the shoulder and said only 3 words. Just trust me. The money came from Scarlett's black card. Soon after, I got a call from her. Mr. Vance, you've been busy, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Tens of millions for a pile of dirt? I thought you might have had a moment of brilliance, but it seems you're still the same old money waster. What's the matter? Did getting dumped by Ava break your brain? You got good sources, Ms. Roman, I said, leaning against my car and whistling. It's just a few million. Consider it the price of a lesson learned. What lesson? The lesson that nothing in life is free, I said pointedly. The other end went silent. Scarlett was smart. She knew what I meant. Giving me the card was both an insult and an investment, a way to see how much trouble I could cause for Ava. Instead, I turned around and used her money to buy a worthless piece of land. From her perspective, my move was breathtakingly stupid. Leo, I'm starting to think I don't get you, she finally said, a note of genuine confusion in her voice. That's the point, I chuckled. Just sit back and enjoy the show. I hung up, imagining the frown on her face. Perfect. A woman's interest in a man often starts when she can't figure him out. That went for both Scarlett and Ava. My job was to deepen that mystery, step by step, until they couldn't look away. The days ticked by. The city council's announcement was getting closer. During that time, Ava's brother, Julian Sterling, a minor villain who constantly bullied the original Leo in the book, called me a few times. His words were full of a victor's condescending pity. Leo, I hear you're playing real estate mobile now. That spot in the South Side is a great choice. Perfect place for your own tombstone. If you get on your knees and beg me right now, maybe I'll convince my sister to throw you a bone. I didn't even bother replying. He was just a clown. The look on his face when he found out the true value of that tombstone would be priceless. Finally, day 29 arrived. That evening, an invitation arrived from the Sterling family. They were inviting my father and me to their annual family gala. The invitation was polite, claiming it was to amicably resolve the engagement issue between our families. But I knew a setup when I saw one. This was an execution. My father held the invitation, his face etched with worry. Leo, should we go? This is obviously a trap to humiliate us in public. Go? Of course we're going. I took the invitation from him, my eyes glinting as I looked at the gold-embossed crest. Some people need to have their faces stomped into the dirt before they learn to feel pain. But, Dad, didn't you want to stand up? I cut him off. Tonight is the first step. My father looked at me, his expression complex. He searched my face for any sign of false bravado, but found none. All he saw was calm and confidence. He didn't know that I was waiting for this exact moment. A stage set perfectly for a spectacular comeback in front of all my enemies. The Sterling family gala was held at a top-tier private club overlooking the Crest River. Everyone who was anyone was there. The moment my father and I walked in, the chattering hall went quiet for a beat. Dozens of pairs of eyes swiveled toward us, filled with a mix of mockery, pity, and morbid curiosity. I could hear the whispered comments. Is that Arthur Vance and his loser son? They actually have the nerve to show up. The nerve is right. If I were him, I'd have already moved to another country. I heard Leo really pissed off Ava. The Sterlings are definitely going to make him pay tonight. My father's face went pale, his hands clenching into fists. I reached out and gently patted his back, giving him a reassuring look. Then I adjusted my suit jacket and, ignoring every stare, walked straight toward the main table. Seated there were the Sterling patriarch, Ava's father, and her insufferably arrogant brother, Julian. Ava was there too. She wore a white evening gown, her hair swept up, revealing the graceful line of her neck. She had the same detached, ethereal look, like a snow lotus untouched by the mortal world. When she saw me, her eyes flickered over me for a second before dismissing me, as if I were a stranger. Well, if it isn't Leo Vance. To what do we owe the honor? Julian was the first to speak, getting to his feet with a sneer. I thought you wouldn't have the guts to show your face. Here to apologize to my little sister. His words were met with a wave of sycophantic laughter. I ignored him. I pulled out a chair for my father, then sat down myself. Julian, I said, picking up a glass of red wine and swirling it gently. I'm not here to apologize. Oh, he raised an eyebrow. Then what are you here for? To beg the Sterlings to have mercy on a pathetic loser like you. I'm here to break the engagement. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried through the suddenly silent hall. Everyone froze. The laughter died. Julian's face turned a shade of mottled purple. What did you say? Say that again. Even Ava, who had remained impassive until now, snapped her head up. For the first time, a flicker of genuine shock appeared in her icy eyes. She probably never dreamed that the word breakup would come from the mouth of the same pathetic guy who used to follow her around like a lost puppy. I said, I put down my glass and enunciated each word. I, Leo Vance, am breaking my engagement to the Sterling family. Who the hell do you think you are? Julian exploded, pointing a finger in my face. A worthless bum who's run his family into the ground dares to break an engagement with us? Who gave you the balls? I did. A cool, female voice cut through the tension from the entrance. Everyone turned. Scarlett Roman, draped in a stunning, fire engine red gown, strode in, flanked by bodyguards. She was a walking flame, instantly commanding the attention of the entire room. She walked straight to my side, casually placing a hand on my shoulder, and looked at Julian with a sultry smile. I gave him the balls. You got a problem with that? The room erupted in gasps. Scarlett and Ava were mortal enemies. Everyone in Crestview knew that. And now, Scarlett was publicly backing Leo Vance. The implications were massive. Ava's face instantly became a mask of cold fury. Her eyes, fixed on the hand Scarlett had on my shoulder, were sharp enough to cut glass. Scarlett, this is a Sterling family matter. It has nothing to do with you, she said coldly. How could it have nothing to do with me? Scarlett laughed, a beautiful tinkling sound. Leo, you see, is my man now. His business is my business. She deliberately made my man sound as suggestive as possible. I had to hide a smile. This woman loved chaos, but her timing was perfect, adding another dose of gasoline to the fire. Julian was shaking with rage. Fine. Great. Leo Vance, you've grown up. You think hiding behind Scarlett Roman means you can disrespect my family? I'm telling you, if you don't get on your knees and apologize right now, you're not walking out of this building. As soon as the words left his mouth, The massive television screen on the wall cut to a breaking news alert from the city. We interrupt this program with a late-breaking story. At 5 p.m. today, the mayor's office officially unveiled the Southside Gateway Development Plan. The project will involve a multi-billion-dollar investment to construct a new central business district, a transportation hub, and luxury residential areas in the South Side. The anchor's voice echoed clearly through the hall. A dead, disbelieving silence fell over the room. Everyone stared at the screen as if frozen in time. The South Side, that godforsaken wasteland, a new central business district? The arrogant smirk on Julian's face froze and cracked. He stared at the TV, his mouth hanging open wide enough to catch flies. The icy mask on Ava's face finally shattered. She whipped her head around to stare at me, her eyes a storm of shock and disbelief. I met her gaze and calmly pulled a file from the inside pocket of my jacket, placing it gently on the table. Oh, I forgot to mention, that land they're talking about in the news? Last month I happened to, well, buy all of it. I gestured to the file. Those are the deeds. According to the news, this pile of dirt I bought for a few tens of millions is now probably worth a few billion, I'd say. I paused, my eyes sweeping over the stunned, slack-jawed faces at the table. Consider that little windfall my breakup fee to Ms. Sterling. I stood up, picked up the annulment agreement I'd had prepared, and tossed it in front of Julian like a piece of trash. As for the engagement, your family just doesn't meet my standards. I'm dumping you. Then, under the stunned gaze of the entire room, I turned and walked away. Scarlett, after a half-second of shock, burst into laughter and looped her arm through mine, walking with me toward the exit. At the door, I paused and looked back at a deathly pale Ava Sterling. Oh, and by the way, thanks for looking down on me. Outside the club, the cool night air felt good on my face. Behind me, just as I'd planned, was absolute silence. Scarlett, still clinging to my arm, was laughing so hard she was shaking. Leo, you are the most interesting bastard I've ever met. She finally managed to catch her breath, her beautiful eyes sparkling. A few billion, just to slap Ava Sterling in the face in public? I think I'm starting to like you. Is that so? I gently removed my arm from hers. Because I don't like you. Scarlett's smile froze. Don't get me wrong, I said, looking at her. I don't hate you. I just don't like being used as a weapon. Her smile vanished, her eyes growing serious. You knew. Knew what? That you deliberately got close to me just to embarrass Ava at her own party? Or that you were the one who leaked the story to the press, hoping to blow things up? I watched her calmly. Ms. Roman, your methods are nothing if not direct. Scarlett's expression changed completely. She couldn't believe that her flawless plan was, in my eyes, nothing more than child's play. She thought she was the hunter, and I was just the bait she was using to provoke another predator. She never imagined that the bait knew her entire playbook from the start, and was even playing along. She stared at me, a flicker of real fear in her eyes for the first time. Who are you? I'm Leo Vance. I smiled, walking toward my sports car. The Leo Vance you can't figure out. I got in a car. Scarlett didn't follow. She just stood there, watching my taillights disappear into the night. I knew that from this night on, Scarlett's feelings for me would shift from playful amusement and utility to a burning curiosity and a desire to conquer. And as for Ava Sterling, her life was about to get a lot harder. Back in the Sterling's ballroom, the atmosphere was frozen solid. The guests were speechless, their minds still reeling from what I had said. Billions. Breaking the engagement. I'm dumping you. Every word was a brutal slap across the face of the entire Sterling family. Julian's face had gone from purple to a dead, ashen gray. He stared at the annulment agreement on the table like it was radioactive. And Ava, she just sat there, her knuckles white as she gripped her wine glass. Her mind was in chaos. How could the pathetic loser who used a trail after her, begging for a single glance, suddenly transform into this, his godlike foresight in the investment, his unnerving calm in the face of public humiliation, his decisive, brutal confidence in breaking the engagement, and that final, parting shot, laced with mockery. Thanks for looking down on me. That sentence pierced her proud heart like a needle. For the first time, she realized she had never known the real Leo Vance. She had always seen herself on a mountaintop, looking down at an ant crawling at the base. Today, she discovered that the ant had, somehow, climbed to a peak far higher than her own, and was now the one looking down. The vertigo from that fall, the complete loss of control, was suffocating. Ava, her father, Richard Sterling, asked timidly, What? What has happened? Ava didn't answer. She stood up, picked up the property deeds I'd left behind, and walked out, her back as cold and rigid as ever. She locked herself in her office. She didn't believe it. She refused to believe a loser could be reborn overnight. There had to be something she didn't know. She leveraged every contact, every resource she had, and started digging into my life. She investigated my every move for the past month, every financial transaction, everyone I'd met. The results only confused her more. The records showed that apart from using an untraceable black card to buy the Southside land, I had spent the rest of the month living the same decadent, aimless life as always. Nothing out of the ordinary. The stark contrast was a puzzle that captivated her, pulling her in deeper. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Scarlett Roman was doing the exact same thing. She frowned at the report her assistant handed her. She knew the black card was hers, but she couldn't figure out how I knew the Southside land was a gold mine. Was it just a lucky guess? Impossible. Once is luck. Twice, she remembered my warning in the hotel room that morning. Don't get yourself played. This man, from the very beginning, was like a player with a God's eye view, calmly watching her and all the other self-proclaimed masters of the universe dance to his tune. Interesting, Scarlett murmured, a predatory smile playing on her lips. Leo Vance, I can't wait to find out how many more secrets you're hiding. They didn't know that the more they investigated, the deeper they would fall into the web I was weaving. And I had already moved on to my next phase. I didn't rush to sell the Southside property. Right now, that land was both a hot potato on my shield. Everyone knew I was no longer the same Leo Vance, but no one could figure out how deep my pockets or my plans went. That fear of the unknown was a more powerful deterrent than billions in cash. I used the land as collateral to secure a massive loan from a bank. Money is just a tool. What really allows a person to stand firm is people. I needed to build my own team. Based on my memory of the book, I zeroed in on one person, Ethan Cross. Ethan Cross, the future right-hand man of the novel's protagonist, a once-in-a-generation business prodigy. But right now, his life was a total train wreck. He'd been framed after exposing his boss's illegal activities, lost his job, was saddled with a mountain of debt, and was now blacklisted from the entire financial industry, flipping tacos at a roadside food truck. When I found him, he was wearing a grease-stained tank top, sweating profusely in front of a smoking grill. He saw me pull up in a Lamborghini, and his eyes filled with wary exhaustion. "What can I get you?" he asked in a rough voice, not even looking up. "Nothing to eat." I pulled up a plastic stool and sat across from him. "I'm here to talk business." He finally looked up, his eyes full of scorn. "Business? My only business is right here. $5 a taco, 3 for $12. I'll give you $100 million in seed money to start an investment firm. You'll be the CEO," I said calmly. Ethan froze, the taco tongs hovering in midair. He stared at me like I was insane. "Who are you? Is this some kind of prank?" "My name is Leo Vance." I handed him a business card. "I know you're Ethan Cross. Dual master's degrees from Harvard Business School. Once the youngest fund manager on Wall Street. Blacklisted after you crossed Mr. Harding at Starlight Capital." The color drained from Ethan's face. Only an inner circle insider could know those details. "You've been investigating me." His eyes turned sharp. "No, I'm investing in you," I said, looking him straight in the eye. "I know you developed a quantitative trading model called Tempest. With enough capital, it could generate $1 billion on the futures market in 3 months. I know you have an unfinished business plan called Spark designed to fund promising tech startups that lack capital. And I know that what you need right now isn't pity. It's a chance to crush every single person who looked down on you and set you up." With every sentence I spoke, Ethan's face grew paler. By the end, his expression had shifted from suspicion and scorn to utter, dumbfounded shock. He didn't know I was reciting his future from the novel. To him, it was like I was an all-knowing oracle, revealing the deepest secrets and ambitions of his heart. What do you want?" he asked, his voice trembling. The same thing you want. I stood up and placed a bank card on the greasy counter. There's 100 million on this card. PIN is 6/8. You have 3 days to think about it. If you're in, come to the address on the card. If not, consider the money a tip. I turned and walked away without a backward glance. I knew he would come, because what I offered him wasn't just money. It was his only hope of rising from the ashes. 3 days later, Ethan Cross, dressed in a brand new suit, walked in my newly rented office. His eyes held no trace of their former despair. They were burning with ambition and a rekindled fire. Mr. Vance, he extended his hand. From this day forward, my life is yours. I smiled and shook his hand. I don't want your life, I said. I want you to help me move the world. We named our investment firm New Dawn Capital. A new beginning. With a genius like Ethan at the helm, the company was up and running in no time. We didn't chase the hot new trends. Instead, following my script, we began to quietly make our moves. We acquired a gaming studio on the brink of bankruptcy because I knew it would release a blockbuster mobile game in 6 months. We bought a stake in a short-form video app because I knew it would become the next social media giant. We invested in a small workshop researching new energy batteries because I knew its technology would revolutionize the auto industry. To the outside world, it looked like we were just throwing money away on lost causes. But only Ethan and I knew that every seed we planted would soon grow into a towering redwood. My own business empire was quietly taking shape. While I was busy building my empire, Scarlett came looking for me. She walked right into the modest office of New Dawn Capital. When she saw Ethan, a flash of surprise crossed her face. Clearly, she recognized the former golden boy of Wall Street. Mr. Vance, you continue to impress me. Scarlett scanned the office, a familiar, playful smirk on her lips. Everyone thinks you're at home, counting your billions, but here you are, playing startup. And you even managed to bring a legend like Ethan Cross out of retirement. You've always got the best intel, Ms. Roman. I gestured for Ethan to step out, then invited Scarlett to sit. So, what can I do for you today? I wouldn't presume to ask for anything. Scarlett sat across from me, pulling a file from her purse and sliding it across the desk. I have a project on my hands, a bit of a tricky one. I was hoping you'd like to play. I picked up the file. It was a redevelopment project for the old West End district. The profits were huge, but it was bogged down in complicated eviction issues. A tough nut to crack. More importantly, the primary competitor for the project was Starlight Capital, the same firm, run by Julian Sterling's future father-in-law, that had blacklisted Ethan. I looked up at Scarlett. This woman never did anything without a motive. She saw my cash and Ethan's talent, and wanted to use us to crack this tough project while simultaneously screwing over the Sterling family. It's a good project, I said, putting the file down. But why should I work with you? Because we have a common enemy. Scarlett leaned forward, her voice low. I know you and Julian Sterling don't get along, and the CEO of Starlight Capital, Mr. Harding, is his future father-in-law. Take down Starlight, and you cut off one of Julian's arms. Is that reason enough? Not good enough. I shook my head. Scarlett frowned. On the surface, Starlight is leading this project, but they can't handle it alone. I leaned back in my chair. According to my sources, their capital chain is stretched to the breaking point. They're just bluffing, looking for a sucker to buy them out. If you jump in now, you'll be that sucker. Scarlett's expression flickered. What I just told her was a closely guarded secret she'd spent a fortune to uncover. She couldn't believe I knew it too. Just how many sources did this man have? So, in your expert opinion, what should be done? She asked, her tone shifting from playful to serious. What should be done? I smiled. We turned their own plan against them. I laid out my strategy for her. It was simple, and it was vicious. We wouldn't just avoid the trap. We'd walk right into it. We'd engage with Starlight, show immense interest in the project, and even drive up the price, creating the illusion that we were rich, desperate fools. Then, just when Starlight thought they had us hooked, when they'd committed all their remaining resources to close the deal at a high price, we'd pull the rug out from under them. Pull the rug? Scarlett asked, confused. Starlight's biggest problem is cash flow, I explained. They recently sank a huge amount of capital into an overseas mining operation. All we need is for that mine to have a little accident. Their capital chain will snap. Then it won't just be the West End project. Their entire company will go under. Scarlett listened, a chill running down her spine. She looked at me like I was the devil. Her plan was simply to outbid them and win a business deal. My plan was to erase Starlight Capital from existence. But how do we cause an accident at an overseas mine? Scarlett asked the crucial question. You don't need to worry about that, I said with a mysterious smile. You just need to play your part and put on a good show. Scarlett was silent for a long time. She had come here today to test me, to use me. But now, she found herself completely swept up in my game. Every move I made was beyond her imagination. Working with this man was like making a deal with a tiger, but the thrill was intoxicating. All right, she finally nodded, her eyes shining with excitement. I'm in. I want to see just how you make a multi-billion-dollar corporation disappear into thin air. For the next 2 weeks, Scarlett and I put on a hell of a show. We formed a joint venture and publicly announced our bid for the West End project. We met frequently with Starlight Capital, always pretending to be clumsy negotiators, letting them think we were a pair of naive suckers eager to make a name for ourselves. Mr. Harding, the CEO of Starlight and the man who ruined Ethan, fell for it completely. He thought he had me right where he wanted me. He poured the last of his company's capital into the project, just waiting for us to sign the papers so he could cash out. Meanwhile, I had Ethan use his old Wall Street contacts to connect with an international group of short sellers. Their target, the stock of the mining company Starlight, had invested in overseas. Everything was in place. We were just waiting for the right moment. The night before the official signing with Starlight, I took Scarlett out to dinner. Tomorrow, we witness a miracle, I said, raising my glass. Scarlett looked at me, her expression complicated. Working with me for the past 2 weeks had given her a completely new perspective. She saw that I possessed not only a devilish business acumen, but also a reckless, irresistible charm. She was beginning to wonder if her feelings for me were purely professional admiration or something more. Leo, she said after a sip of wine, her eyes a little hazy. Can I ask you something? Ask. Do you still have any feelings for Ava Sterling? I laughed. What do you think? The woman who nearly ground me into the dust. Do you think I'd have feelings for her? Then, what about me? She asked, her voice barely a whisper as she met my gaze. I looked at her beautiful, sultry face, so close to mine, and didn't answer. I just leaned in and whispered in her ear. After tomorrow, I'll tell you. The next day, the news of Starlight Capital's bankruptcy hit Crestview's financial world like a bomb. Overnight, the once mighty corporation's stock plummeted by 90%, and it declared it was filing for liquidation. The reason? Its flagship overseas mining investment had been exposed as a complete fraud with fabricated reserve data. The stock became worthless paper overnight, causing a catastrophic break in Starlight's capital chain. Mr. Harding, the untouchable CEO, reportedly suffered a massive stroke in his office and was rushed to the hospital. And Julian Sterling, the clown who had bet his entire future on his father-in-law, was left with nothing. The entire city was reeling from the aftershocks. Everyone thought it was a tragic accident, a black swan event. Only a handful of people knew that behind it all was the hand of a single puppet master. Ava Sterling was one of them. She was in an emergency board meeting when she heard the news. The topic of the meeting was how a major company project had been ambushed, resulting in devastating losses. And the person who had ambushed them was Scarlett Roman. Ava immediately knew who was standing behind Scarlett, Leo Vance. She couldn't understand how, in just a few weeks, Leo and Scarlett had amassed enough power to challenge Sterling Corp head-on. Then the news about Starlight Capital broke. In that instant, a chilling realization washed over her. She finally understood. Leo and Scarlett's attack on her project was just a feint. Their real target from the very beginning was Starlight Capital. They had used their conflict with her company to distract Mr. Harding to make him lower his guard. And then, at the most critical moment, they delivered the killing blow. It was a brilliant, devastating strategy. Ava's hands were trembling. She looked at the arguing board members, all panicking over the lost project, and felt a profound sense of powerlessness for the first time in her life. The business battle she fought, which she had considered the height of corporate warfare, were like children's games compared to the masterpiece of destruction Leo had just orchestrated. She and he weren't even playing on the same board. After the meeting, Ava locked herself in her office and dialed the number of the man she had once despised, a man who now terrified her. The phone rang for a long time before he picked up. "Hello." Leo's lazy voice came through, mixed with the sound of a woman's laughter in the background. "Scarlett." That knowledge was a thorn in Ava's heart. "Leo, it's me," Ava said, taking a deep breath to keep her voice steady. "Well, Ms. Sterling, to what do I owe the pleasure?" "The West End Project and Starlight Capital." "Was it you?" Ava asked, getting straight to the point. "What if it was? What if it wasn't?" His tone was light, teasing. "Stop," Ava said, a hint of pleading in her voice. "You and Scarlett together can't take on Sterling Corp. If this continues, we'll both be destroyed." A light laugh came from the other end, followed by Scarlett's voice. "Ms. Sterling, I think you have it backwards. You're the one asking us to stop, not the other way around. We're holding all the cards now." Ava's face flushed with humiliation. Not long ago, she had spoken to Leo with that same condescending tone. Payback was a bitch. "Leo, what do you want?" Ava's voice was hoarse. "What do I want?" Leo's voice finally turned serious. "Ava, when you stood in front of everyone and called me a worthless loser who could never amount to anything, did you ask me what I wanted then? When you crushed my dignity under your heel? When you told me over the phone in that oh-so-charitable tone that you were calling off the marriage, did you ask me what I wanted then? And now, you have the nerve to ask me what I want." Every word was a hammer blow to Ava's heart. She was speechless. "You want me to stop?" "Fine." Leo's voice came again, cold and unyielding. "First, you will transfer 10% of your company's profits from the last quarter to my firm's account as compensation for my emotional distress. Second, you will issue a public apology. I want you at that same club, in front of the same people, to admit that you were wrong about me. And third," Leo paused, "you will deliver the partnership agreement to my office yourself, and you will come alone." Ava's hand, clutching the phone, was shaking with humiliation. Each condition was designed to strip away another layer of her pride and throw on the ground. "In your dreams," she practically screamed. "Then we have nothing left to talk about." Leo's voice returned to its lazy drawl. "Ms. Sterling, business is war. I hope Sterling Corp can last a little longer." The line went dead. Listening to the dial tone, Ava finally collapsed in her chair. Sunlight streamed through the window, but she felt no warmth. Regret washed over her like a tidal wave. She finally understood what her arrogance and prejudice had cost her. There is no greater pain than watching something you once threw away like trash transform into something you can never hope to reach again. This was her reckoning, a fire she had started herself, now burning hot enough to turn her to ash. The fall of Starlight Capital made New Dawn Capital a legend overnight. Ethan Cross had cleared his name, returning to the pinnacle of Crestview's financial world. And I, Leo Vance, became a name spoken in hushed, fearful tones in the city's most exclusive circles. No one dared call me a loser anymore. Now, their eyes held nothing but awe and terror. Scarlett became my staunchest ally, or perhaps more accurately, my #1 fan. She practically moved her company's headquarters next door to mine, constantly trailing after me, fawning over me to the point that even Ethan found it uncomfortable. As for Ava, she eventually capitulated. She didn't make a public apology, but she did transfer a multi-billion-dollar project from her company to New Dawn, no strings attached. I knew it was the biggest concession her pride would allow. I accepted it. My goal was never to destroy her, but to make her understand who was in control. Everything seemed to be going perfectly. Using my knowledge of the future, I led Ethan and Scarlett on a conquering spree through the capital markets. Our wealth grew exponentially. The foundation of a massive business empire was in place. But I knew, deep down, that the real test was yet to come. In the novel, Starlight Capital and Julian Sterling were just small fry villains. The true final boss was a shadowy organization pulling all the strings, a group so powerful it took the original protagonist over 300 chapters to defeat, the Apex Council. It was a secret society of the world's top financial elites, their influence so vast they could topple small governments. In the book, my character's death was indirectly caused by them, and the hero's true rise began with his fight against them. My recent moves had been too loud, too successful. I had gotten their attention. Sure enough, trouble found me. First, several of New Dawn's key projects were hit by coordinated, malicious short-selling attacks from an unknown entity. Then, our primary bank suddenly called in our loans, citing a high-risk assessment. Several of Ethan's top traders were poached by a rival firm for an exorbitant sum, and they took confidential company data with them. Suddenly, my empire was under siege. Ethan was running on fumes, dark circles forming under his eyes. "Leo, this is bad," he said, his face grim as he handed me a report. "Their attacks are surgical, hitting all of our weak points. This isn't normal competition. There's a mastermind behind this." I stared out the window, my expression calm. "I know," I said. "They're here." "Who are they?" "A name you don't need to worry about yet." I turned and clapped him on the shoulder. "Don't panic. This is all part of the plan." Ethan looked at me. There wasn't a trace of fear on my face. In fact, he saw a glimmer of excitement. He didn't understand, but he chose to trust me. From the day they met, this man had done nothing but create miracles. Of course I was excited. Fighting clowns like Julian Sterling was boring. A chess match against a behemoth like the Apex Council? Now, that was a challenge. I had been waiting for this day. I knew they were coming, and I had prepared a special welcome gift for them. From the day New Dawn was founded, I had Ethan secretly funnel most of our profits through a complex network of shell corporations to an offshore account. The projects we invested in publicly, the ones that looked so successful, were just bait. I wanted the Apex Council to think they had me by the throat, that they could crush me at any moment. And while they focused all their power on attacking my decoys, my real weapon was waiting in the shadows. "Ethan," I said over the intercom, "initiate the hibernation protocol." Ethan paused on the other end. Then his voice came back, filled with excitement. "Leo, are you sure? Right now?" "Yes, right now." I looked down at a file on my desk, a cold smile on my lips. "The hunters have entered the woods. It's time for the prey to show its fangs." The hibernation protocol was a trap I had designed specifically for the Apex Council. A trap big enough to cripple even a giant like them. The game was finally reaching its climax. The Apex Council's assault was more ferocious than I'd anticipated. Under their relentless pressure, New Dawn Capital's public stock value plummeted. On paper, we lost 80% of our assets in a single week. The market was in a panic. Everyone believed the myth of Leo Vance was about to come to a spectacular end. The same media outlets that had sung my praises were now leading the charge against me. Even my father called me several times, his voice filled with worry. But I acted like nothing was wrong. I was even in the mood to host a high-profile business auction. Up for sale was my most valuable asset, a portion of the development rights to the Southside land. The news sent shockwaves through Crestview. Everyone thought I'd lost my mind. This was a desperate, last-ditch effort to survive. On the day of the auction, nearly every important person in the city was there. They weren't there to bid. They were there to watch me fall. They wanted a front-row seat to see the once unstoppable Wunderkind get crushed under the heel of the Apex Council. In the crowd, I saw two people I was expecting, yet was still surprised to see: Ava Sterling and Scarlett Roman. They hadn't arrived together, but they met at the entrance. Scarlett, stunning as ever in a red dress, immediately walked up to block Ava's path. "Well, if it isn't Ms. Sterling, here to see your ex-fiancé's empire crumble, paying your last respects." Scarlett's voice was pure venom. Ava paled slightly, but quickly regained her composure. She looked at Scarlett coolly. "What I'm doing here is none of your business. You, on the other hand, Leo is about to lose everything. Perhaps it's time for you to find a new tree to cling to." "My relationship with him is none of your business," Scarlett shot back. "At least I wasn't the one who kicked him when he was down." The words hit their mark, a direct strike at Ava's deepest regret. Ava swayed slightly, her lips parted, but she couldn't form a response. The two women, one fire, one ice, stood in a standoff at the entrance, the air crackling with tension. Everyone else gave them a wide berth, watching the drama unfold with great interest. Just then, I emerged from backstage. Ladies, fighting in public is so unladylike," I said with a smile, walking between them. The moment they saw me, they both fell silent. Scarlett's face immediately broke into a smile, and she moved to link her arm with mine. Leo, you're here. Ava just looked at me, her eyes a mix of worry and a guilt she couldn't hide. I ignored Scarlett's outstretched arm and did something that made everyone's jaws drop. I reached out with both hands, wrapping one arm around Scarlett's waist and gripping Ava's wrist with the other, pulling them both to my side. All right, that's enough fighting, I said, feeling the soft curve on my left and the cool wrist on my right. My smile widened. I'm the main event today. That means you both listen to me. Scarlett froze, shocked that I would be so bold in public. Ava was stunned too. She tried to pull away, but my grip was like steel. A deep blush crept up her neck. The other guests looked like their eyes were about to pop out of their heads. What was happening? The two most powerful and desired women in Crestview, one fire, one ice, were being held, one in each arm, by the nearly bankrupt Leo Vance. Leo, let go of me, Ava hissed, a mix of anger and embarrassment in her voice. I'll let you go, I whispered, leaning close so only the three of us could hear, but I need your help. They both looked at me. The Apex Council's representative is here today, I said, subtly nodding toward a corner of the room. They think I'm weak. They want to buy my South Side land for pennies on the dollar. I need both of you to help me drive up the price. We're going to bleed them. Help you. Scarlett raised an eyebrow. What's in it for us? The prize, my eyes glinted, is that when I'm done with the Apex Council, the future of this city's entire economy will be decided by the three of us. My voice held a magnetic confidence that was impossible to resist. Scarlett's breath hitched. Ava stopped struggling. She looked at me, her eyes wide with an astonishment that went beyond words. Even now, on the brink of ruin, he wasn't thinking about survival. He was thinking about a counterattack. From now on, I said, looking at each of them in turn, both your companies will follow my lead. I released them. Scarlett looked at me, her eyes shining with a fanatical light. Ava looked down, silent for a long moment, before finally giving a small, almost imperceptible nod. I knew, in that moment, that I had truly conquered them. Not with my money, not with my schemes, but with the absolute, unwavering confidence of a king, even in the face of annihilation. The auction began. The atmosphere was tense. The Apex Council's representative, a Japanese man named Yamada, sat in the front row, a smug, confident look on his face. He thought this auction was his personal playground. I, Leo Vance, was just a fish on a chopping block, ready to be carved up. He was wrong. When the auctioneer announced the starting bid of $100 million, Yamada casually raised his paddle. $110 million, his translator called out in an arrogant tone. Everyone assumed that would be close to the final price. But in the next second, Scarlett's voice rang out. $200 million. The room buzzed. Yamada's brow furrowed. He shot a look at Scarlett, clearly annoyed. He raised his paddle again. $210 million. $300 million. This time it was Ava. Her voice was cool, but it resonated with strength. Yamada's face turned ugly. He stood up and walked over to me, demanding in broken English, Mr. Vance, what is this? You hire shills to drive up price. Shills? I laughed. Mr. Yamada, you underestimate these women. They're not my shills. They're my allies. Allies. Yamada sneered. What can two women do for you? I tell you, this land is mine today. Anyone who bids against me is an enemy of the Apex Council. He thought that name would be enough to intimidate everyone. It didn't intimidate me. Is that so? I stood up, walked onto the stage, and took the microphone from the auctioneer. Ladies and gentlemen, my voice boomed through the speakers. Today's auction is hereby concluded. Everyone was stunned. Yamada was flabbergasted. Concluded? What you mean? I said, looking at him as if he were already a dead man. I'm not selling. Not selling. Yamada laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Leo, you forget, your company is about to be bankrupt. If you don't sell now, you wait for liquidation? I tell you then, I get this land for free. Really? The smile on my face turned razor sharp. I'm afraid you won't get the chance. As the words left my mouth, the giant screen behind me flickered to life. It showed the live feed from the New York Stock Exchange. A stock called Black Diamond Mining, the same company Starlight had invested in, which had been dormant for weeks, suddenly began to surge 0.50%, 100%, 300%. The price shot up like a rocket. The entire room was speechless. The color drained from Yamada's face. He knew that the Apex Council had invested tens of billions to short that very stock. The sudden reversal meant their short positions were being liquidated at an astronomical rate. Impossible. This is impossible, he muttered, swaying on his feet. Nothing is impossible, I said into the microphone, my voice calm. The story about fabricated reserves? That was a rumor I started, and you all believed it. I used your greed to lure you into taking a massive short position. And then today, at the very moment you thought you had won, I detonated my long position. Mr. Yamada, not only do I not need to sell this land, but as of this moment, I might just be richer than the Apex Council. I looked him straight in the eye and delivered the final verdict. The game has changed. From now on, I'm the one on offense. Yamada couldn't take it anymore. He collapsed to the floor. He couldn't believe that he and the vast, powerful Apex Council behind him had been so thoroughly and spectacularly played by a man he had dismissed as a loser. The hall was silent. Everyone was staring at me as if I were a god. Ava and Scarlett stood in the crowd, watching the man on the stage, shining with a terrifying brilliance, their eyes filled with a mixture of shock and adoration. They finally understood. My earlier claim about moving the world wasn't just arrogant bluster. This man, he had actually done it. He had taken on an empire by himself and won. This was never a fair fight, not because of strength, but because of perspective. I was holding the script, and they were all just characters in my story. The dust settled. The Apex Council, crippled by its losses on black diamond mining, was forced to retreat from its operations in Asia. And I, through that one monumental gamble, had reached the summit. New Dawn Capital not only recovered all its losses, but also swallowed up the prime assets the Apex Council left behind, becoming an untouchable titan of industry in Crestview and across the country. My father, Arthur Vance, after seeing the news, locked himself in his study and drank all night. The next day, he transferred his position as chairman of Vance Industries to me. He said he was old. The Vance family's future was now in my hands. Everything had gone just as I had planned, or even better. This afternoon, I stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows in my penthouse office, looking down at the sprawling city below. There was a soft knock on the door. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was. Two distinct, intoxicating perfumes drifted into the room. Congratulations, Mr. Vance. Scarlett's voice was a lazy purr. She came up behind me, her arms sliding around my waist. You're the king of Crestview now. I'm not here to congratulate you, Ava said. Her voice was still cool, but it held a new softness. She came to stand beside me, holding a file. I'm here to sign a new contract with you. I turned and saw the file in her hands. Embossed in gold leaf on the cover were 3 words. Marriage agreement. I raised an eyebrow, but didn't take it. Scarlett saw this, and her smile widened. Ava, darling, you really don't get it, do you? You think you can tie him down with a piece of paper now? It's too late. He's a free man. He belongs to the world. As she spoke, she pressed herself closer against my back. A faint blush colored Ava's cheeks, but she held her ground. She looked me straight in the eye. I know it's late, and I know I was wrong about so many things. This contract isn't about tying you down. It's a gesture. Whether you sign it or not is your decision. Her eyes were free of their former pride and ice. All I saw was sincerity and a fragile, hopeful plea. I looked at her, then at the smoldering woman in my arms. One ice, one fire. One was the unattainable dream I once chased. The other was the fiery passion that had unexpectedly entered my life. In the original story, they were destined to be rivals, both eventually ending up as conquests for the protagonist. But because of me, their fates had been rewritten, and now they both stood before me, waiting for me to choose. I smiled. Choose. Only children have to choose. The Crestview skyline was bathed in the golden light of sunset, the rivers of traffic flowing like molten gold below. The gilded letters on Ava's marriage proposal seemed to shimmer in the warm light, much like the charged atmosphere in my office. Scarlett's rich, heady perfume mingled with Ava's crisp, cool scent, a harmony of fire and ice. A gesture, I murmured, taking the proposal. I didn't open it. Instead, I placed it on the polished surface of my desk. Since when did you learn to use such sentimental words, Ms. Sterling? The tips of Ava's ears turned pink. She wore a sharp, white power suit, her hair pulled back in a low ponytail, revealing the elegant line of her neck. The icy armor was gone, replaced by a vulnerable strength. I was wrong before. My pride blinded me. I know now that some people are worth letting that pride go. "Oh, how touching," Scarlet purred, rubbing her cheek against my back. The silk of her red dress whispered against my legs. "But our king of Crestview has everything now. Power, unimaginable wealth. Does he really need your little gesture?" She hooked a finger in my tie, pulling me around to face her smoldering gaze. I, on the other hand, can offer him something far more interesting than a piece of paper. Her touch was cool, but her eyes burned with an unconcealed possessiveness. Ever since our victory, she had made her intentions clear, staking her claim on the space beside me, whether in a boardroom or at a gala. I caught her wrist, my thumb tracing the delicate skin, but my gaze shifted back to Ava. "Do you know what I hate most, Ava?" She met my eyes, her own clear and honest. "I do. You hate being controlled. You hate insincerity." "Correct." I released Scarlet and stepped toward Ava, gently tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "But you should also know that I never fail to reward genuine loyalty." Scarlet huffed, moving to my other side and looping her arm through mine, her chin tilted defiantly. "What? You think you can have us both? Greed can be a dangerous thing, Leo." "Dangerous?" I looked between the two most brilliant women in the city. One was a blazing fire, the other a cool, clear diamond. They were meant to be enemies, but here they were, standing beside me, their eyes reflecting only my image. A wave of exhilaration washed over me. I wrapped an arm around each of them, pulling them close. "I am Leo Vance. I can topple empires and bend fate to my will. You think I'm afraid of a little fire?" Scarlet stiffened for a second before melting against me, her arms wrapping around my waist. "You've got nerve, I'll give you that," she said, her voice muffled against my chest. "But I'm warning you, if you play favorites, I'll burn this whole company to the ground." Ava was more rigid, clearly unaccustomed to such intimacy. The blush on her cheeks deepened, but she didn't pull away. She rested her head on my shoulder, her voice a soft murmur. I won't lose to her." I leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to Scarlet's forehead, then turned to Ava, my lips brushing against her warm cheek. "Then let's see which one of you I can't live without." The air grew thick with unspoken promises. The setting sun painted the room in hues of orange and gold. Scarlet tilted her head up and captured my lips in a kiss that was as bold and intoxicating as she was. Ava, in a surprising show of defiance, closed her eyes and bit my lower lip gently, a touch of shy rebellion. Two entirely different kisses, both sending a jolt through my system. "I'll sign the marriage agreement," I said, cupping Ava's face. "Not as a contract, but as a promise. I, Leo Vance, swear that I will never let you down." Then I turned to Scarlet, tweaking her nose. "And as for you, my beautiful troublemaker, you may not have a piece of paper, but your place in my life is just as secure. From now on, your enemies are my enemies. Anyone who dares to touch you will have to go through me first." Scarlet laughed, a joyous, uninhibited sound, and planted a kiss on my cheek, leaving a perfect red lipstick mark. "That's more like it. But you'd better be ready, Mr. Vance. Keeping two women happy is a full-time job." Even Ava smiled then, a breathtaking sight like the first thaw of spring. "I'll learn how to take care of you," she said softly. "And I'll learn to get along with her." I laughed, pulling them both tighter. "Then let's give this city a show it will never forget. Let's live a life more spectacular than any novel." From that day forward, the elite society of Crestview was in a permanent state of shock. No one could believe that the fire and ice, Scarlet Roman and Ava Sterling, could coexist peacefully at Leo Vance's side. They whispered behind our backs, calling me shameless, envying my fortune, and placing bets on when our dysfunctional trio would implode. But they could never understand that what we had transcended their narrow definitions. Scarlet remained the fierce queen of her empire, but with a new, softer edge. She would bring me a warm glass of milk when I worked late, step in front of me at parties to take a shot of whiskey mint for me, and attempt to mediate my minor disagreements with Ava, though she usually just made things more chaotic. Ava shed her icy exterior completely, revealing a warm and resilient core. She leveraged her own company's resources to pave the way for New Dawn's expansion, offered calm, brilliant analysis when I faced a business crisis, and even learned to cook my favorite meals, nearly setting the kitchen on fire in the process. We became an unstoppable force. We would arrive at summits together, Scarlett on my left arm, Ava on my right, a united front that commanded respect and fear. We took vacations to private islands, where Scarlett would run wild on the beach and Ava would read quietly under an umbrella while I lay between them, soaking in a perfect, impossible happiness. Of course, there was friction. Scarlett would pout if I spent an extra half hour with Ava, hiding important files in her office. Ava would get silently annoyed when Scarlett claimed the passenger seat of my car, showing up 10 minutes early the next day to stake her claim. They would argue passionately over whether I prefer my eggs scrambled or over easy, forcing me to eat 2 breakfasts to keep the peace. But the storms always passed. Scarlett would return the files with a guilty smile and a piece of expensive chocolate. Ava would silently place a cup of Scarlett's favorite coffee on her desk, and I was the happy axis around which their world turned, a tiring but deeply fulfilling role. Ethan would often walk in to report on business and just shake his head at the sight of them sitting on opposite ends of my office sofa, peacefully reading. Leo, he once asked me in private, "How did you do it?" They were supposed to be mortal enemies. I just smiled. It's simple, Ethan. Honesty and respect. They're both fiercely loyal women who were trapped by their pasts. Now, they know we're all on the same team. In time, the whispers died down, replaced by a grudging admiration. Our 3 companies formed an unbreakable alliance, a new empire that dominated the national economy. And I, Leo Vance, had not only completed my journey from a throwaway character to a titan of industry, but had also found a love more profound than I ever could have imagined. Tonight, the 3 of us were on the penthouse terrace, sipping wine and watching the city lights twinkle below. Scarlett was curled against my side. "Leo," she murmured, "do you think it will always be like this?" Ava looked at me, her eyes reflecting the starlight, full of the same quiet question. I squeezed their hands and looked up at the vast, endless night sky. "It will," I said, my voice firm with a conviction that came from the very core of my being. "As long as the 3 of us are together, there's no storm we can't weather. I built this world for us. This world is mine, and I am yours." Scarlett smiled and tilted her head up to kiss me. Ava smiled too, resting her head on my shoulder. The gentle night wind carried our laughter out over the city. I knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of our life. The cannon fodder had not only seized his own destiny, but had found a love story grander than any author could have written. With an empire at my feet and a queen on each arm, this was what it truly meant to win the game. And all those who once looked down on me could only watch from the shadows, forever blinded by our light. This was the life of Leo Vance, a legend all my own. End.